The notification came in at 9:43 on a Tuesday night while I was sitting in my truck in the parking lot of a Home Depot, eating a gas station sandwich and pretending that counted as dinner. I was 31 years old. I owned a level, a tape measure, and approximately one pot that I used for both pasta and ramen depending on whether I wanted to feel adult about it. My name is Ryan Calloway. I do HVAC work for a mid-size contractor in Columbus, Ohio, which means I spend most of my days in attics and crawl spaces talking to ductwork that doesn't talk back. It's honest work. I'm good at it, but it doesn't exactly fill a Tuesday night with meaning. The text read, "I know you said to text when I got here, but I'm already at the table, and I can't tell if I look calm or if I look like I'm about to file my own missing person report. Please just tell me I don't look insane." I read it twice. The number wasn't saved. No name, no context. Just a woman somewhere who apparently thought I was someone else, and who was clearly having a worse night than I was, which took some doing given the sandwich situation. I should have typed wrong number and gone back to my food. That's the clean move. The responsible, adult, low-drama move. Instead, I sat there in the parking lot glow, reading those two sentences again, because whoever she was, she sounded like someone who had talked herself into something she wasn't sure about, and was now sitting alone at a restaurant table, trying to look like a person who did this all the time. I knew that feeling. Not from dating. From the first time I ever had to give a job estimate to a homeowner by myself, fresh out of apprenticeship, sitting across from a retired couple in Westerville who asked me questions. I answered too fast because I was terrified they'd figure out I was improvising half of it. You can be completely capable and still feel like a fraud at the starting line. I typed, "I think you may have sent this to the wrong number, but for what it's worth, sitting at a table alone for 2 minutes doesn't make you look insane. It makes you look like someone who showed up on time." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Oh no. Oh no, oh no, oh no. I smiled in spite of myself. "I'm going to slide under this booth and wait for the restaurant to close." "Don't," I typed. "That seems like a lot of commitment for a first date." A pause. Then, "You're much nicer than the man I was supposed to text." That sentence should have been where I typed "good luck" and put my phone away. Instead, I finished the sandwich and kept the conversation open, which tells you something about how my Tuesday nights had been going. Her name was Trish. Trish Harmon, 34, kindergarten teacher, currently sitting at a corner booth at a place called Luca's on the Near East Side. Good wood-fired pizza, impossible street parking, candles on the tables that made everyone look vaguely confessional. The man she was supposed to meet was named Kyle, which struck me immediately as a risk she had taken knowingly. Kyle was 12 minutes late. "Bread just arrived," she texted. "I'm going to eat the entire basket before he gets here and I refuse to feel bad about it." "Bread eaten alone is bread at peace," I wrote back. "There's nothing to feel bad about." "Where are you right now?" I looked out my windshield at the Home Depot, sign glowing orange in the dark. "Parking lot, eating a gas station sandwich in my truck. That's either very sad or very free. I can't decide." "Split the difference," I typed. "It's a Tuesday." She sent a laughing emoji, which meant more than it should have from a stranger in a restaurant booth. I pulled the sandwich wrapper flat against my steering wheel like I suddenly needed something to do with my hands. Kyle was 20 minutes late when she texted, "He just walked in." I set the wrapper down. "He brought his dog." I stared at that sentence for a solid 5 seconds. To the restaurant? To the restaurant. It's a golden retriever. It's wearing a bandana. The hostess looks like she's making a series of decisions she did not train for. I laughed out loud in an empty parking lot at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday, which was either very sad or very free. I still couldn't decide. Are dogs allowed there? I don't think so. The hostess is currently having a quiet conversation with him that he is losing. How is the dog taking it? The dog seems fine. The dog is the only one handling this correctly. I kept texting her while the hostess situation resolved itself, which apparently ended with Kyle tying the retriever to a bike rack out front, coming inside with what Trish described as the energy of a man who considers this a minor inconvenience and not a preview of his entire personality. Kyle sat down. Kyle ordered immediately without asking if she was ready. Kyle mentioned twice in the first 5 minutes that he worked in tech, and not in the way where you say what you do, in the way where you say what you are. "He just asked me if I've ever thought about going back to school," she texted. "I have a master's degree." "Did you tell him?" I said, and drank my water. That's more restraint than I would have managed. I teach kindergarten. Is a professional skill. I got out of my truck around that point because sitting still was getting difficult. I leaned against the tailgate in the cold parking lot air, phone in both hands, feeling something low and warm in my chest that I hadn't felt in a while and didn't have a clean name for. After my last relationship ended, 2 years ago now, a girl named Devon who was kind and funny and ultimately wanted to move to Portland in a way I didn't understand until she was already gone. I had told myself I was fine. I was working a lot. I was saving money. I was perfectly content eating gas station food in Home Depot parking lots and listening to podcasts about things I'd never actually do, like build a cabin or learn to sail. That was a life. It was a small life, kept careful, nothing leaking in or out. Most nights it felt like enough. Some nights it felt like waiting for something I'd stopped believing would arrive. He just told me his last girlfriend wasn't emotionally evolved enough. Trish texted. He used the phrase emotional evolution. Twice. Is he still there? He's ordering a second drink without asking if I want one. Trish. I know. You can leave. My coat is on his side of the booth. Leave the coat. It's November in Ohio, Ryan. And that my name, which she'd somehow pulled from an earlier message, said back to me like she already knew how to use it. That did something to the inside of my chest that I was not prepared for. Fair, I typed. Retrieve the coat. He's talking again. About his podcast. He has a podcast. He has a podcast. I pushed off the tailgate. Trish. Coat, door. My legs are not receiving that instruction right now. I looked at the Home Depot sign. I looked at my truck. I thought about Devon in Portland, about 2 years of keeping things small and safe, about gas station sandwiches that technically counted as dinner. Then I called her. It rang twice. When she picked up, her voice was quiet and pressed in, the way voices get when you're trying not to be overheard. Ryan. I had not thought about what it would sound like to hear my name in a voice I'd never heard before. I thought about it. Now. Hi, I said. I need you to do something for me. What? Tell me your coat is within arm's reach. A pause. It's on the seat beside him. Okay. Can you reach across? I know, reach anyway. Silence on the line. Then a rustling sound, a half beat of awkward ambient noise. Kyle's voice in the background saying, "Everything okay?" Trish said, "Yes, sorry, I just." And then her voice shifted, got clearer. "Actually, I have to take this. It's about one of my students." I heard Kyle say something I couldn't make out. She said, "I'm sorry, I know, but yes, I really do have to go." The sound of a booth seatment. Her breathing changed, got closer to the phone. "I'm getting up," she said quietly to me. "You're doing great," I said. Kyle's voice again, louder now. "Trish, come on. We just ordered." I heard her pause. And then, before I could say anything, before I could figure out if I was the kind of person who told strangers what to do in restaurants, before any of that, she said, "I'm sorry, Kyle. Have a good night." I heard the sound of a door. Traffic noise. Cold air coming through the line like she'd stepped from one world into another. "I'm outside," she said. I let out a breath I hadn't been holding responsibly. "How's the coat situation?" "I have the coat." "A beat." "I also have the bread." "You took the bread." It was good bread. "I'm not leaving good bread for Kyle." I laughed, leaning back against the tailgate in the Home Depot parking lot, and the laugh felt different than the one from before. More open, less contained, the kind that comes when something genuinely surprises you. "That bread has been through enough," I said. "Exactly." Her voice softened a little. "Ryan, you didn't have to call." "I know." Most people would have said good luck and gone back to whatever they were doing. "I was eating a gas station sandwich," I said. The bar for interruption was pretty low. She laughed. It was uneven and a little breathless, the way laughs are when you're still coming down from adrenaline, and it was the best sound I'd heard in longer than I wanted to admit. "I'm standing outside Luca's in November," she said, "with stolen bread and no plan. Where's your car?" "Near the library." "Okay. Start walking. Are you going to stay on the phone?" I looked at my truck. I looked at the Home Depot sign. I thought about Devon and crawl spaces and 2 years of keeping everything manageable. "Yeah," I said. "I'll stay on the phone." She started walking. I heard her footsteps on pavement, the sound of Columbus traffic at night, the occasional crinkle of the bread bag. We talked about nothing important. Whether the dog had a better evening than either of them, whether emotional evolution was worse as a concept or as a phrase, whether kindergarteners or golden retrievers had better social instincts. She said it wasn't close. I agreed. And then Kyle's voice came through the line again. Closer this time. Trish. Hold on. Her footsteps stopped. I just want to talk for a second. His voice had changed. The podcast energy was gone. What replaced it wasn't aggression exactly, but it wasn't nothing. You didn't have to do that in there. I think I did, she said quietly. You're being dramatic. There it is, that word. Dramatic. The word people use when they want to make you feel like your own reaction is the problem. Trish, I said. Where are you? Corner of Franklin and Fifth, she said, low enough that Kyle might not have caught it. I know that corner, I said, and I did 2 blocks from Luca's, a used bookstore on one side and a 24-hour pharmacy on the other, good lighting, not isolated. Kyle said, Who are you talking to? She didn't answer him. Is this the student thing? His voice had an edge now. Was that even real? Kyle, she said it flat and even. I just want an explanation. I drove 45 minutes. You brought your dog to dinner. He gets anxious when I leave him. I understand that, she said. But you didn't mention it, you didn't ask. You just showed up with an expectation that I'd adjust. A breath. That's been the whole night, actually. Silence. Trish, I said. You doing okay? Working on it, she said. Kyle's voice dropped, got quieter. I'm not trying to be a bad guy here. I don't think you are, she said, and it sounded like she meant it, which somehow made it more final than anger would have. I just don't think we're a good fit. I hope you and your dog have a really nice rest of the evening. A long pause. Then footsteps, his, walking away. I stayed quiet until I heard her exhale. He's gone, she said. You okay? I think so. Her voice was smaller now, steadier. I don't do this. I'm not a person who walks out of restaurants and tells men they're not a good fit and takes the bread. You did tonight, I said. I did tonight, she repeated, like she was trying the sentence on. I got in my truck. I didn't plan to. It just happened, the way things do when your body figures something out before your brain catches up. I was in the driver's seat with the engine running before I'd made any kind of conscious decision about it. Where are you parked? I asked. She gave me the cross street. I already knew the block. I'm going to drive by, I said. I'm not trying to make this weird. I just want to make sure you get to your car. Ryan, you don't have to. I know. I'm going anyway. I heard something in the pause that followed. Not alarm. Something softer than that. Okay, she said. I pulled out of the Home Depot lot and took Broad Street East. And 4 minutes later, I was turning onto Fifth and my headlights swept across the corner of Fifth and Franklin, and there she was. Standing beside a gray Subaru under a street lamp, coat buttoned up, a paper bag in one arm, phone still to her ear. She was not what I had pictured. I don't know what I had pictured. She was about 5'4", dark hair pulled back, her posture somewhere between exhausted and determined, like someone who'd had a long day and refused to let it have the last word. She saw my truck slow and took the phone from her ear and looked at me. I rolled down the window. Hi, I said. She looked at me for a moment that lasted about 3 times longer than a moment should. Then she said, You're actually young. I laughed. I'm 31. Kyle was 43. She said it like that explained something, and honestly it did. Are you okay? I asked. I'm okay. She shifted the bread bag. I feel a little stupid. For leaving? For going in the first place? I shook my head. You showed up. That's not stupid. That takes something. She looked down the street, then back at me. I've been on exactly 2 dates since my divorce. Both of them were fine in the way that cereal is fine. No one's grateful for it. It just gets you to the next thing. I turned off my engine, not consciously. Just did it. How long? I asked. 3 years. A breath. We were together for 6. He wasn't a bad person. We wanted different versions of the same life, I think. By the time we figured that out, we'd already bought the furniture. I understood that. Not the marriage part, but the furniture part, the life you build around a future that quietly changes shape while you're not looking. I'm sorry, I said. Don't say it like an apology. She tilted her head. Say it like you mean it. I mean it, I said, and I did. She was quiet for a second. The street was mostly empty. A taxi went by. From somewhere up the block, the pharmacy door opened and closed. Columbus at 11 p.m., which is not New York or Chicago, but is also not nothing. It's a city that keeps a low hum, like machinery that doesn't need to be loud to be running. Thank you for calling, she said. I don't know what that was, but thank you. You would have left anyway, I said. Maybe. She pulled the bread bag higher. But it was easier with someone on the line. I thought about Devin. I thought about 2 years of easy, empty, uneventful evenings. About the way I'd told myself that small felt safe, and that safe was what I needed, and that needing things was what got you into trouble anyway. Trish, I said, and I didn't have a plan for what came after it, which meant what came out was true. I don't want to stop talking to you. She looked at me. Really looked. The kind of look that isn't deciding whether to trust you so much as checking whether you know what you just said. That's a strange thing to tell someone you've known for 45 minutes, she said. I know. Via accidental text message. I know. A corner of her mouth pulled up. She set the bread bag on the roof of her Subaru, which I took as a sign. I have school tomorrow, she said. I have 22 5-year-olds who will not care about any of this, and also one of them will definitely cry before 9 a.m. for a reason that won't be fully explainable. Okay, I said. So I can't. This isn't the night for anything. I'm not asking for anything, I said. I'm just asking for your number, your actual one. She looked at me for another moment. Then she picked up her phone, held it toward my window, and showed me the screen, a new contact, already typed. Trish H., that's my real number, she said. Thank you. Don't text me something weird at midnight. I'm going to sleep, I said. I have a commercial HVAC job in Hilliard at 7. She actually smiled at that. A real one, not the polished kind people put on when they want to seem open. The kind that shows up before you've decided to let it. Good night, Ryan, she said. Good night, Trish. She took the bread off her car roof, got in the Subaru, and pulled out. I watched her taillights until the intersection, then sat there on 5th Street in my truck, with the engine off for about 30 seconds longer than necessary, thinking about nothing in particular, which is to say thinking about everything. I texted her at 11:18 p.m. I know I said I was going to sleep. I just wanted to say that I think you handled tonight with a lot of dignity, she replied, 4 minutes later. You saw me steal restaurant bread and give a fake emergency call. Define dignity. I typed. You left on your own terms. That counts. A pause. Then, good night, Ryan. For real this time. I drove home. The first real date was 2 Saturdays later. Coffee. Not dinner. Because she said dinner felt like too much pressure for a second first impression, and I said that was the smartest thing I'd heard in weeks. Went to a place in German Village called Stauff's, wood floors and mismatched chairs, and the kind of lighting that makes everyone look like they're halfway through something interesting. We talked for 3.5 hours. I know this because the barista refilled my mug twice without being asked and gave us a look the third time that communicated, clearly and without words, that we were welcome to stay. But she was going to start wiping tables around us. Trish taught kindergarten at a Title I school on the South Side. She said it the way teachers who care about their work say things. Not waiting for a reaction, not performing meaning, just stating a fact that happened to be a fact she'd organized her life around. She had grown up in Akron, had moved to Columbus for grad school, and then stayed because Columbus was the kind of city that let you stay without making a big deal of it. She liked plants and hated when people described things as obsessed. She had a whole theory about it involving the inflation of language. She was funny in the way that snuck up on you. Not jokes, just the perfectly placed observation, the sentence that lands differently than you thought it would. I told her about the HVAC work, about how I'd stumbled into it after a semester and a half of a business degree that never felt like mine, about how I'd expected to feel embarrassed about it and then hadn't, because there was something specific and honest about work where you can point to what you did at the end of the day. She nodded at that in a way that meant she understood it, not just heard it. We didn't talk about Devon or about her ex-husband. Not that day. There would be time for that, for the full weight of where we'd each been and how it had changed the shape of things. But that afternoon in German Village, we stayed in the present tense, which felt like its own kind of generosity. When we walked out, it was cold and gray in the way Columbus does November. Not dramatic, just persistent, and she pulled her coat tighter and looked up and said, "That was good." "Yeah," I said. "It was. I want to do it again," she said, direct and simple, like she was done with the part of her life where she made people guess at things. "Me too," I said. "Okay," she said. And that was it. The first hard thing came about 6 weeks in, over a phone call I didn't see coming. I was in a crawl space in Gahana, dealing with a blower motor that had given up the will to function, and my phone lit up with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, climbed out, and listened to the message leaning against my van in a stranger's driveway. It was Trish's sister, Cora. Trish had been in a minor car accident. She was fine, completely fine. The other guy had run a red light and clipped her rear bumper. She had pulled over and called Cora first because that was the reflex of someone who had handled emergencies alone for 3 years and didn't yet have the habit of calling anyone else. Cora had Trish's phone at that point. Trish was fine. Cora was calling me because my name was the last one in the recent contacts. I drove to the intersection on Livingston, where it had happened. Trish was standing beside her Subaru. Same gray car, different context, different kind of cold evening, talking to a police officer and holding a coffee she'd apparently gotten from a 7-Eleven across the street while she waited. Because she was, as I was learning, a person who found practical solutions to helplessness. She saw me and went still for a second. "You didn't have to come," she said when I got close enough. "Cora called me," I said. "I told her not to. She called anyway." Trish looked at the police officer, who was clearly done with his questions and giving us space. She looked at her car, which had a dented rear quarter panel and a broken tail light, but was otherwise fine. She looked at the 7-Eleven coffee in her hand. I don't need to be taken care of," she said. Careful, not defensive. Like she was telling me something important about who she was and needed me to understand it before anything else. "I know," I said. "I've been doing this by myself for a long time." "I know that too. So She stopped. "I just want you to know I didn't call you because I couldn't handle it." "Trish," I said. "I know you could handle it. You were handling it before I got here." I nodded at the coffee. "You were handling it at the 7-Eleven. She made a small sound that was almost a laugh. "I came because your name in a voicemail made me want to be where you were. That's different from assuming you can't cope." She was quiet for a moment. A car went through the intersection. The police officer got in his vehicle. "Okay," she said finally. "Okay?" She held the coffee out, offering me the other side of the cup to hold while she fished her keys out of her pocket. I took it. Our hands were close on the cardboard sleeve. "Company," she said. "Not management. That's the whole job," I said. She looked up at me. Something shifted in her face, not a revelation, just a small door opening that had been closed for a long time. We drove back in separate cars. She texted me from her driveway. "Home. Car will need a tail light. I'm fine." I texted back. "Good. Tell me if you need anything," she said. "I'll tell you if I want company," which was not the same thing as need, and she knew I'd heard the difference. 7 months in, I met Cora and Cora's husband at a backyard cookout in August, the kind of casual introduction that was actually not casual at all, because both of us understood what it meant to bring someone to family. Cora was Trish's older sister by 4 years and had the energy of someone who had been managing things her whole life and had mostly made peace with that. She shook my hand and said, "She said you eat gas station sandwiches for dinner. That's either charming or concerning, and I haven't decided." "Bit of both," I said. Cora's husband, Larry, immediately asked me about the HVAC situation in their house, which had been making a sound. I spent 10 minutes in their utility room and found a loose mounting bracket. Larry looked at me like I'd located a missing person. "I like him," he said to Trish, loud enough for the whole backyard. "Larry," she said. "I'm just saying." Trish caught my eye from across the yard and gave me the look of someone who had grown up with these people and had developed the patience of a kindergarten teacher about it. I liked them. I liked the whole afternoon, the ordinary noise of it, the way Trish moved through her family like someone who belonged there, the way she laughed at Larry's bad jokes just enough to encourage him, but not enough to confirm they were good. Driving home, I said, "Your sister's already judging the mounting bracket situation, isn't she?" "She texted me before we hit the highway," Trish confirmed. "What did she say?" "Keep him." She looked out the window. "She's not subtle." "Neither are you," I said. "It's something I appreciate." She reached over and held my hand on the center console. Didn't say anything. Just held it, the way you do when you don't need the gesture to mean anything more than it already does. The thing that almost broke us came in October, 14 months in, and it was small enough that that's what made it hard. I had made plans with a buddy of mine, Terrence, to go up to Cleveland for a Browns game. Tickets he'd bought months before, whole thing planned out. I'd told Trish about it in August. It was on the calendar. She'd said, of course, go. What I hadn't told her was that Terrence had a friend group that included Devin. Not because I was hiding it, because it genuinely hadn't registered as something that needed saying. They ran in the same loose orbit. They weren't close. It hadn't seemed like a fact with weight. Trish found out from a photo Terrence posted. Not a romantic photo, just a group at the tailgate. Me and Devin in the same frame, both of us in orange. Both holding beers, both clearly fine. She didn't say anything dramatic about it. She texted, "Looks like a good game." And something in the flatness of that sentence told me everything. I called her on the drive back. "I should have told you she'd be there," I said. "Not because anything happened, nothing happened, but because you would have wanted to know, and not telling you was me deciding that for you. And that wasn't right." She was quiet. "I'm sorry," I said. "It's not about Devin," she said finally. "I know. It's about, when my marriage was ending, I kept finding out things later. Things that weren't big. Just things that should have been said and weren't, because he'd decided they didn't matter." A breath. "I can't do that again. I can't be with someone who manages information on my behalf." "I hear you," I said. And I did, not defensively, not rushing to explain, just heard it. "I'm not asking you to report to me," she said. "I'm asking you to trust me with the small stuff. Because if I can't trust the small stuff, you can," I said. "I'll do better." A long pause. "Okay," she said. "Okay, yes, Ryan. Okay." The warmth came back into her voice, careful and real. "But I'm keeping a record." "Of course. Of course you are. You're a teacher." She laughed, and the thing that could have calcified didn't. A year after that, I proposed in the parking lot of Luca's. I know how that sounds. I don't care. It was the 1-year anniversary of the wrong number. Give or take a few days. Because I'd had to reconstruct the timeline from my text history, and there's a 3-day window I'm not fully certain about. We went to Luca's for dinner, which was Trish's suggestion, which told me she thought about it the way I did. As a place where something started, not a place where something went wrong. We had the wood-fired margarita. We had wine. We talked like we always talked. Easy and close and funny, the way two people talk when they've gotten past performing, and settled into the actual thing. After, we stood in the parking lot in November cold, not far from where her Subaru had been parked that first night, and I took out a ring I'd been carrying in my jacket pocket for 11 days. Because I kept waiting for the right moment and eventually understood that the right moment was this one. I didn't make a speech. Trish had told me once that she distrusted long speeches, that they were usually more about the speaker than the listener. So I said, "I want to keep doing this, all of it, for a long time." She looked at the ring, then at me. "You know," she said, "I almost didn't text that night." "I know. My sister basically pushed the button for me." "I know. I was going to cancel 3 times." Yes," she said, "obviously yes." I put the ring on her finger. She looked at it for a moment, the way she looked at things she was going to keep. Then she reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a dinner roll she'd taken from the breadbasket. "I didn't plan this part," she said. It seemed right." I took the roll from her. It was still warm. "It's right," I said. She leaned her forehead against my shoulder, laughing into my jacket, and I stood in that parking lot in Columbus in November with stolen bread in my hand and a woman who had taught me that company was not the same as management. And I thought, this is the whole thing. This is exactly it. We got married the following September. Small ceremony. Cora and Larry, a few friends, my parents who drove up from Cincinnati, and were visibly relieved in a way I chose not to take, personally. We rented a pavilion in Schiller Park, and Terrence played music off a Bluetooth speaker, and at some point someone put a bread roll in the centerpiece as a joke, and Trish left it there for the whole reception. I gave a short toast. I said, "I spent a long time keeping my life very manageable." I told myself that was healthy. It turned out manageable is just another word for closed, and the only thing that opened it was a text meant for someone else. Cora cried. Larry applauded. Trish looked at me the way she looked at things she was going to keep. 3 years on, she teaches the same school, same room, different faces. 22 kids a year who will never fully know what they meant to her or how much she carries home. I took a job with a small outfit doing custom residential work, which is harder and slower and more satisfying in a way I didn't expect but should have. We have a house in Clintonville with a yard that is exactly one more project than I have time for, and a kitchen where Trisha's plants take up more window space than I technically agreed to. Some evenings, I'm still in a parking lot somewhere, between jobs, eating something that technically counts as dinner, and I'll get a text from her that says something like, "ETA? I made actual food." And I'll text back, 20 minutes. Don't let it get cold. And she'll say, it's already cold, Ryan. Come home. So I come home. If you've ever gotten a message that wasn't meant for you and wondered whether to say something, I don't know what I'd tell you except that sometimes the wrong number is the most honest one you'll ever answer.